Welcome to this Uncommander deck tech featuring Frankie Peanuts guessing games. This deck is not for the faint of heart. It can be confusing to pilot and cruel to your opponents. Instead of fighting your foes on the battlefield of creatures and spells, you will duel them primarily with words. This deck slowly beats down with utility creatures enhanced by powerful equipment, while slyly removing everything your opponents play and protecting Frankie Peanuts at all costs. Frankie Peanuts is a silver-bordered 4-mana 2/3 elephant rogue with a bizarre unique ability. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may ask target player a yes or no question. If you do, that player answers truthfully and abides by their answer until end of turn. This ability may not seem impactful on its own, but it synergizes with a lot of cards across Magic's history that force your opponent to make difficult choices, and the Tusked Mafioso only makes those choices harder. Without any supporting cards, the simplest question to ask with Frankie Peanuts inform attacking decisions. If I attack you with Frankie, will you block him with your 3/3? Depending on how they answer and what cards I have in hand, I can choose to safely attack, blow out the opponent with a combat trick, or direct the elephant elsewhere. Mono White has plenty of cards that force players to choose their strongest creature and sacrifice the rest. Mr. Peanuts can manipulate opponents into saving exactly what I want them to. These brutal board wipes, such as Magus of the Balance, Single Combat, Divine Reckoning, and Cataclysm are empowered by Frankie. For example, my ramp opponent has managed to cheat out the fearsome Dragon alongside some smaller creatures by asking, if you had to choose a permanent, will you choose Dragon? I will know whether the path is clear to cast one of my board wipes. Opponents will quickly catch on to these questions though, and usually choose to save the strong creature, especially if they have an idea of what white decks can be up to in Commander. This is where another category of cards come in to make the Elephant Mafia as feared as it should be. Cards where the opponent is incentivized to choose their weakest creature for an effect. Preacher and Evangelize steal an opponent's creature of their choice, while Eye of Doom, Council's Judgment, or Sacrifice spells will remove it. I ask the same question as in last example. If you had to choose a permanent, will you choose Dragon? Now they're damned if they say yes. I cast Evangelize and steal him permanently. And damned if they say no. I cast Single Combat and they are forced to save some other creature and sacrifice Dragon. With both types of cards available, Frankie Peanuts can dominate the board and remove precisely what the Trunk Father decrees. Frankie also helps mitigate White's crippling card draw weakness by empowering several artifacts that draw a card based on opponents' choices. The minigames found in Buzzing Wackadoodle, Liar's Pendulum, My First Tome, and Everythingamajig become laughably easy to draw cards from when the Mafioso bullies my opponents into guessing exactly what I want them to. To use Liar's Pendulum as an example, I can freely draw a card with the question, if you had to guess if a card is in my hand, will you say yes? Some other cards that work similarly are Thran Tome, Phyrexian Grimoire, Death or Glory, and Karn, Scion of Urza. Frankie intimidates the opponent into truthfully answering, if you had to pick between two piles of cards, will you pick the pile I ask for? Based on my opponent's answer, I can ask for the card I actually want, or the cards I don't. As long as Frankie is the commander, and my opponents are allowing silver border cards, a mistake they won't make again, it would be foolish to not use some other powerful uncards. Split Screen gives unmatched card selection, by splitting my deck into 4 face-up libraries, and works especially well with Mystic Forge and Verge Rangers, that let me play cards from the top of my library. Rules Lawyer completely protects Frankie Peanuts and my other creatures from damage and toughness reducing effects. Other than Frankie himself, my favorite silver border card is Do-It-Yourself Seraph. Fetching important artifacts from my deck and slowly growing to an unstoppable mountain of text boxes. The first thing to fetch is always Darksteel Citadel to grant her indestructible, and then start picking up utility artifacts as needed. With Rules Lawyer on the battlefield, I can even start grabbing equipment with DIY Seraph. The state-based action that causes equipment to fall off if it's a creature no longer applies to her. The deck doesn't really have any win conditions, and is extremely dependent on Mr. Peanuts staying on the board, so I added plenty of cards to protect him. Cloak and Dagger automatically attaches to him, but there's a variety of other equipment like Swiftfoot Boots and Darksteel Plate that save him from removal as well. Teferi's Protection is the best defensive spell in Magic. It is a cruel way to win alongside Balancing Act or Cataclysm by keeping my board safe while everyone else must sacrifice theirs. Elephant Graveyard is the most obscure way to protect Frankie, an otherwise useless card that's older than I am. The rest of the deck is some offensive equipment like Sword of Dungeons and Dragons and Loxodon Warhammer, a few mono-white staples like Sun Titan, Grand Abolisher, and Generous Gift, and as always plenty of mana rocks to keep the deck running smoothly. Thanks for watching this Uncommander deck tech for Frankie Peanuts. Enjoy confusing and extorting your opponents with the Elephant Mafia.